Hi, everybody. Thank you for taking the time out of your day um, and out of your busy schedules to join us on the webinar today. We'll be discussing why the SENNEBOGEN 718E is the game changer, especially when it comes to tree dismantling, trimming, and removal. Just as a side note, all attendees today are in listen-only mode. So if you guys have any questions during the presentation, please feel free to use the chat box that's to the right of you to let us know. And we'll be coming back to all of your questions at the end in the Q&A section of the presentation. Okay, you should all see the slideshow, and we can go ahead and begin. So today, our speakers, Constantino Lanas, President and CEO of SENNEBOGEN North America, and Ken Palmer, President and co-founder of Arbormaster, will be talking about the 718E, their insights, and their knowledge on the industry. The agenda for today includes the following topics. Ken will be talking about the tree care industry's SWOT and doing a SWOT analysis, as well as why the 718E is a game changer. Constantino Lanas will be then talking about technical insight on the equipment, as well as an overview on SENNEBOGEN and parts and service network, and as well as the future product roadmap. He will also be covering or providing an overview on the price analysis and financing opportunities. In addition to, he'll be covering the applications that will be demonstrated during Demo Day in April. And finally, last but not least, we'll go ahead and jump into our Q&A, where I will be hashing out all of your guys' questions, and so Ken and Constantino can go ahead and answer them for you. So without further ado, Ken, you can take it away.
Okay, since I'm up first, I thought I would do a short introduction. And to address my first point in the SWOT discussion, more of a discussion than an analysis really, and really an abbreviated discussion at that. I want to hit on some key points that will help me to make the point as to why automated equipment, and specifically at this point in time, the SENNEBOGEN 718E is truly a game changer.
Okay.
Well, we can go ahead and mute the sound. I don't think we need that, but you can see this person is learning a very hard lesson the hard way. Speaking to the strength of our industry and the way that we work currently, we have an old urban forest, and the urban forest, it speaks to the need for people to care for that urban forest, and really that is what urban forestry is all about, as opposed to traditional forestry, which is really about harvesting and logging. And most people used to think of, whenever they would hear forestry in any form or fashion, they would think of logging or perhaps visiting a national park and that sort of thing. Well, urban forestry, as you folks know, is really about dealing with the urban forest. And that term is, I'm using the term kind of loosely, because a person could go to school and actually acquire a degree in urban forestry, and they'd probably go to work for a city, municipality, and manage that forest. I use the term to help people understand the difference between harvesting and either caring for trees, or where trees interface with people. And what really separates the two hugely, to me, is that while in traditional forestry is driven by the harvest, what really drives the tree care industry and urban forestry is not that at all, but rather trees as a resource, because we love trees for many, many very good reasons, and because trees, representing a very large source of potential energy in our living environment, pose risk. So resource and risk is what really drives the industry. So as our urban forest grows older, there's an even ever increasing, I should say, need for people to take care of that and to deal with the fact that people and trees are interfacing. People are tough on trees. We impact trees in very negative ways. We call it people pressure. And I'm sure that all of you that are listening understand exactly what I mean by that. We deal with trees that are living in a different environment than those in the forest, and that's why we need to manage them. So I see the urban forest industry and arboriculture increasing in importance, and I truly believe that it's a noble profession. For over 21 years now, I've been president of Arbor Master Training. We've been providing workforce education and training for people that work with, in, and around trees in urban forest settings. And we've had some wonderful successes. I believe that we're very well known. I know that we're well known worldwide for what we do and the way we approach training. We take training very seriously. We understand the difference between education and training, that training is about experience building, it's about skill development, and gone are the days of the apprenticeships when there was an opportunity for younger people to learn under the watchful eye and the guiding hand of a master that would take them through an educational process and through the training and skill development process, as well as experience building in safety. We're now expected to do this on the job. And our statistical data reflects that very, very clearly. In fact, moving now to the weaknesses, and the slide is certainly speaking to weaknesses, that most companies do not even have a line item in their business plan for workforce development. For some reason, these things have been left out. I think it has to do with just the progression of the industry and the way things have played out. But clearly, we have an issue here. And in many ways, it's very similar to what took place, beginning, say, 30 years ago in traditional forestry and logging, when it was the most dangerous industry on land. Everyone knew it almost because it was talked about widely. In particular, people that worked with trees, we knew how dangerous logging was. We haven't been hearing that recently. The reason for that is because automation and heavy equipment and the use of equipment, putting the workers in a safer work environment and able to work more productively, has had a huge impact on that. And I believe that that's happening now in our industry and will continue to happen. If we look at this pie chart, which I'm sure you've had a chance to do now, the big one that stands out, now these are, of course, injuries. And while the all-industry average is 5.8, the industry average for urban forestry is 8.2, considerably higher. We are the highest on land in the country. Struck by, I think everybody has a pretty good idea of what that means, is someone is hit by an object, typically a falling object. It could be a swinging object if someone was to rig something poorly. And as you know, when you rig a piece of a tree, a limb, or a piece of wood in particular, and the rigging point is not directly overhead, it may swing away and come back. So there's a real interplay between people on the ground working the rope, people in the tree, and the more people involved in the process, the greater the likelihood for human error. Falls from elevation is number two. So it amazes me that this many people fell and survived. It must be younger people, and it's probably the end of their careers, because falling from height is a tough thing to recover from. And as we get older, we don't bounce as well and rarely survive these kinds of things. And you can see that electrocution, or not electrocution, I use that term wrong, electrical contact. Electrocution means dead. That's a fatality. But electrical contact. It's amazing to me that this many people come in contact with energized conductors and survive it. But what this means is that someone cut something, it went the wrong way, came in contact with the energized conductor, and energized the tree that they were in and or the equipment they were working in, and somehow they were positioned to be diffused, and they were shocked. And then when you can go a little further, you can see caught in chipper. That's on the rise, unfortunately, and struck or stuck under palm fronds. That is almost exclusive to specific parts of the country because of specific types of trees. And I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on that right now. It's kind of off topic. But you can see that in looking at number one, struck again. How does that happen? Someone has cut something that fell on or against someone. You can see that oftentimes it's not so much going to the job or getting to the work, but being inadequately prepared, educated, and trained to do the job that we're asked to do once we get there. I'd like to move along, and you'll see that the next slide, you'll see that we also have a big problem in the tree care industry with fatalities. Why is this man, in this case, in a dead oak tree, cutting out half of the tree? We decided to mute the sound, rigging the top and catching it with a tree that he's in. Why would he make a decision to do that? Well, I have an idea. You can see what the outcome was in this case. As it turns out, that was a high school field trip. They were out, the teacher brought their students out to watch a tree company take a tree down that way. So perhaps they were under another sort of pressure to perform that day. It's hard to say what caused them to make that sort of decision, but there are so many variables in tree work. Every tree is at least a little bit different. You could even argue that every cut is a little bit different. And that means the variables are around us all day, every day. We've got to be able to think on our feet all day. The opportunity for operator error is just all around us all the time. And now we're in a time of more distractions, perhaps, than ever before. Looking at this pie chart, well, you can see that struck by, again, is number one. Now, these are fatalities. And the tree care industry is 10 times, not twice as much, not 3 times as much, 10 times the all industry average. This is a very unforgiving place to learn hard lessons. And again, it comes back to the operation itself, I believe. It's not so much climbing to height, though if we look to number 2, it would be fall from tree or fall from lift, and that would be a fall from height category. So they work together. One is from the lift, one is from the tree. But only 14% of those were a person in the tree. The other 11 were a person in an aerial lift. And somehow they managed to either be ejected from the lift or they cut themselves out of the tree one way or another, or they weren't properly fall protected. There's just human error, so many human error opportunities, and unfortunately these incidents that take place that result in fatalities. And then electrocution, as it turns out, during this time period was number 3, and these 3 are the big 3. But even here in electrocution, you can see that the person that is being electrocuted, most of the time, that is indirect contact, the vast majority of the time. And that's happening either to a person working up in the tree or a person on the ground that comes in contact with the truck, either by tipping brush or going to the truck to remove a tool, when the lower boom of the bucket truck or something of that nature is in contact with the energized conductor, and they're electrocuted. So, moving along into the future, this tool that we know of as the chainsaw has been both a blessing and a curse. The top handle saw in particular, because it positions both hands over the center of mass for ergonomic reasons, it also puts the operator into a constant temptation to work with one hand. Why? Because you can. It was never intended to be a one-handed operation, but because you can, that can free up the other hand to hold the branch. And this is unfortunately for several decades now, the way people have been, I'm not going to use the word trained, they've been shown how to do tree work. The longer they do this, the more they do it, the more they're training themselves to work this way. And this is the result. This was the least, well, adverse looking slide that I have depicting a really nasty accident. I chose this one because it doesn't show any bloody body parts. Right? And unfortunately, well, for better or for worse, a lot of people send me a lot of pictures during the course of the year. I use them in presentations and so forth, but I try not to do too much on the side of blood and gore. But I think I've made my point that the reality is that one of the huge weaknesses in our industry is human error and the fatalities that take place because of the dangerous nature of the work and the environment that we are sending people into day after day. So, moving along to the future, and speaking of these types of fatalities, this is something that's probably become familiar to a lot of you. Certainly, if you get Tree Care Industry Magazine, you've been seeing that every month you get to see what's taking place in the months prior. And this is, we're doing a better job than ever before, probably, but it's very difficult to collect statistical data. A lot of, especially injuries. Now, this is a combination of injuries and fatalities, but in particular, larger companies are frequently, and I'm not pointing fingers, I'm just saying, we all know this, that a lot of employers will send an injury to their own doctor, which is unreported as a result, and so forth and so on. And then there are those that work under the table and that are off the radar screen, and even the fatalities don't necessarily make it into the statistical data. So most likely, it's worse than we even know. In this particular month, there were 7 fatalities. There were 6 serious injuries, and there were no rescues. There are very, very few successful rescues that ever take place in the tree care industry. They're typically recoveries, unfortunately. And next, we'll see that along with this type of informative material, I think it's good information because at least it keeps it in front of us. It reminds us that it's not just what we hear in our local newspaper directly around us that we should be paying attention to if we want to be looking at leading indicators in terms of what's causing these accidents and so forth. But I think you'll agree that this type of information that's in this little write-up on each of these incidents is vague at best. There's very little information that can be gleaned to help to prevent an accident in the future. I've come to the belief, after 22 years educating and training arborists under Arbor Master Training Incorporated, that the tree care industry doesn't have the will nor the wherewithal to really, really change this type of statistical data. This is 2016 accumulated. Again, you're seeing the same patterns, and you're even seeing that the injuries are way under. I mean, it's totally inconsistent with reality because they're just not being reported. But I believe we need a new approach. If we're really going to reduce injuries and reduce fatalities, we need a game changer. And the game changer that's before us right now, and the future is here. Just like in the forestry industry, the traditional forest and logging industry, automation and technical machinery was developed to harvest trees by people that were working in a much, much safer environment, eliminating fall hazards, eliminating struck-by hazards, putting people, for many intents and purposes, into a Faraday cage, removing them from that danger. is what has made a difference in that industry. The future is now. It's here. I'm excited about this technology because I want to make a difference in the dismal injury and fatality rate in the industry that I know and love so much. I'd like to turn the presentation over to Constantino because he is the man that is making this possible in our country right now with North American, SENNEBOGEN North America, and he is very knowledgeable about the industry now and the equipment that he's bringing to us. Constantino, please take it away.
Thanks a lot, Ken. I would like to take the opportunity to introduce to you the SENNEBOGEN 718, as well as go through a couple of details and use a lot of pictures to show you what we did and what were the basis of our design and the ideas behind our design. As we get into this area, if we can move, the 718 was engineered based on over 65 years of experience that SENNEBOGEN has building material handlers and cranes. And we combined that experience with a very deep analysis of the tree care industry requirements and how we could make changes to this industry. First of all, we look into safety. We look into try to remove the person from the cutting area on the trees as much as we can, in as many situations as we can, and position this person inside a protected environment inside the operator's cab. The second criteria was performance. It's well known to all of us today that it's getting more and more difficult to find people to perform this work. So how could we mechanize this work and increase drastically the number of trees that can be processed per hour or per day using just one operator? As a third criteria, we look into operating costs. And we look into how can we build an equipment that's very simple to maintain, that's very robust, that can reduce drastically the operating cost as well as the maintenance cost. And last but not least, we look into flexibility. We know the industry and we know that most of the companies are not cutting trees every day, but they have other tasks that they have to perform. So our idea when designing the 718 was to provide a tool carrier that can operate multiple attachments, being a grapple saw, being a tree processor, being a mulcher, being a mower, without have to make any change to the base unit. Meaning just changing the attachment at the end of the stick, we could perform the different functions. Moving forward, I would like to get a little bit into the basic operating data without boring you with 1,000 numbers and figures. Everybody can read that in a catalog. But the important design criteria was, first of all, the lift capacity. When I cut the tree, I have to make sure that I can hold that tree and that I can bring that tree safely down. So the lift capacity at 45 feet height, that's the highest point we can reach today, is 12,000 pounds. Second, when we look at the lift capacity at the maximum horizontal reach, so if I have something that I have to reach that's far away, that's difficult, I can still at 43 feet of horizontal reach lift 3,700 pounds. When we look into the motorization of this unit, we decided to go with a Cummins engine, mainly because it's a very popular engine in North America. It's very easy to get replacement parts. It's very easy to find service. It's 160 horsepower diesel engine, Tier 4 final technology, the newest level of EPA requirements when it gets to pollution on the engine. The weight of the unit is 48 pounds, and as we move forward, coupled with a transport width of only 8 feet and 7 inches, makes it very easy to transport from site to site. We install in this unit an elevating cab that brings the eye level of the operator to 18 feet. And at the same time, this unit tilts, what allows the operator to be in the ideal operating position, seeing exactly what he is doing. And as we all know, when you see better, you can operate in a much safer way. We install in the unit a dual pump system. The idea behind is that we have one pump that is dedicated to the attachment only. So when I'm using a mulcher, it's an attachment that requires a lot of oil at high pressure. I can still be driving and using that mulcher because I have independent pumps. So the oil I'm taking to drive the unit is not coming away from the attachment, meaning the attachment can operate at maximum performance all the time. And last but not least, we design a cooling system that has the radiator, the hydraulic oil cooler, and the turbo intercooler side by side, meaning that there is no contamination in between that cause overheating of the unit or difficults the cooling of the unit. And this combination of the three coolers is refrigerated by a hydraulic driven fan, and this fan is reversible. That means whenever any one of those three fluids is increasing in temperature, the fan will turn in the opposite direction and will clean the radiators, making sure that the machine operates in ideal operating conditions. As we move forward, I would like to show you a couple of details on the unit. As you can see on this picture, that's almost at maximum horizontal reach at 43 feet, where we can still lift 3,700 pounds. We can work far away from the trees in difficult to achieve conditions. Moving on, we'll see operating at the highest level, where we can lift 12,000 pounds and bringing that big section of tree safely down, making sure that there's no collateral damage when that piece of tree or that tree falls down on the buildings or on anything else. As we can see on the next picture, I would like to give you a brief overview on the machine and its components. If you look to the front of the unit, you see some steps. The purpose of those is to give 3 points of contact when the mechanic is going on top of the upper carriage to do any kind of maintenance. And the only reason to go to the top of the upper carriage will be to change hydraulic oil filters, what's done every 2,000 hours, so it's not a daily or weekly maintenance. And as you can see, there are railings around the upper carriage. So when the mechanic is up there, there is no danger that he will fall down. So we have to make sure that we produce equipment to the highest possible safety levels. If you look to the cabin, you'll see that cabin is tilted at 30 degrees, placing the operator in an ideal operating condition. And on that right side where you see that cover, that door, behind that door, you find the engine as well as you find the cooling package. As we move to the next slide, I will show you a detailed view of the engine mounted on the side of the unit. You can easily find the alternator, the starter, the turbo, the filters. So you can do all your maintenance from the ground and in a very easy and accessible way. And when you look to the right side of that picture, you see the coolers. Moving on, we can see here the cab in different positions depending on which task the operator is performing. The left picture, you'll see the cab is slightly inclined, so the operator can look up in a more comfortable position. On the right picture, you see the cab lifted approximately halfway. Again, position the eyes to the operator at the ideal operating condition. On this unit, on the right, you can see this unit has a stabilizer blade in the back and a set of outrigger pads in the front. This unit can be configured with 4 outrigger pads as well. As we move forward, I want to show you the cab in the highest position in still horizontal, not tilted. This would bring the operator eye level to 18 feet. You can see again here the outriggers in the front, the blade in the back, as well as the railings all around the upper carriage for protection of the operator. Under the cover on the left-hand side, that you can see on this picture as well, are the electric panel, are the control valves, as well as the central lubrication system. The complete unit is continuously being lubricated, and the controls are all hydraulic. That means there are no electronics. It's all hydraulic over hydraulic, what makes the troubleshooting and the maintenance extremely simple. Another detail that can be seen on this picture is on the cab, we have a sliding door. That means when that machine tilts back to the original position, the operator can easily access the 3 points of contact through the steps between the front wheels and the rear wheels, and from there get onto the cab. Again, safety first as the first design criteria on the unit. Moving forward, you have a view from inside the operator's cab. He has, on the top display, he has 2 cameras, one on the right side and one on the back of the machine. So whenever he moves the machine, he can see through his cameras where he is positioned and making sure that nobody is around. The unit is designed to receive up to 4 cameras. So optionally, other cameras can be added either on the grapple or on the left side or in any other position that's required. Below that, there is the second display that shows all the operating conditions, all the alarms, and all the information necessary for the driver. As you can see, in front there is a protection in case a tree or anything else strikes the cab, that the operator is well protected. And the glass, both in front and top, they are bulletproof glass. This way, even smaller objects that might come flying through the protection guards will not penetrate the cab and will not put the life of the operator in any damage. Another interesting aspect here is you don't see any steering wheel. The steering is done through the joysticks, what gives even more visibility for the operator, making the operation of the unit simpler and safer. As we move forward, I'd like to show you the cab in the maximum tilted position as well as in the highest point. You can see that's very comfortable. You can be looking up at 45 feet where we'll be cutting that tree and being sitting in the cab in a very, very comfortable position. I would like to draw your attention here as well to the connecting link between the end of the stick and the grapple, and I'll talk more about that in a second. As we move forward, we'll see the details of that connecting link. If you look at the left picture, you see a horizontal cylinder as well as a vertical cylinder. That horizontal cylinder is a tilter that tilts the grapple 180 degrees, 90 degrees down, 90 degrees up. And that vertical cylinder is a rotator that turns the grapple 280 degrees. Because we never know exactly where we'll be able to position the machine, and for sure the branches and the trees, they are at the most different angles when it gets to the position of the machine on the ground. So this way we can tilt and rotate that grapple, simulating the function of the human hand and wrist in a way that we can always grab that branch or that tree safely, that when the cut is made, that will not slide down or not fall down. As well as you can see here on the lower part of the grapple, you can see the saw element that once it's activated, it cuts the tree or cuts the branch. As we move forward, I want to show you some more details of that combination tilter rotator. So you can see on the right picture, the tilter is 90 degrees down, so it can go all the way to 90 degrees up. And you can see on the left picture how the combination tilter rotator places the grapple in the ideal operating position. Moving to this next slide, we'll see operating with a mulcher. As I said before, the dedicated pump gives a great advantage that the mulcher can be operating while the machine is moving. This way, the mulcher is operating at ideal conditions, and we have a separate pump to drive the machine or move the boom or move the stick. Moving forward, we'll see again similar mulcher operating at a higher position with the telescoping stick extended. It extends 9 feet, what gives a tremendous reach out. Another interesting aspect you can see on this picture, opposite to cranes, this machine does not need to be leveled to operate. You can easily see here from the position of the outriggers that one is much lower than the other. The machine is at a certain incline. So the machine is designed to operate off-road, to operate in a non-leveled terrain, what again increases the flexibility and facilitates the operation because you can just get to the tree, put your outriggers down and cut. You don't have to spend time trying to level or trying to position perfectly. Moving on, I would like to talk a little bit about pricing analysis and some financial options. First of all, performance. Experience has shown, and we have a number of machines operating in North America, and these are statements made by one of the owners of these machines. He's performing work 10 times faster than conventional crew with 25% of the people. So that's the first step into looking into how to amortize the cost of the unit, how to finance the unit, is the amount of work that can be done. Apart from the fact that you are doing a very safe way, you'll not be concerned about accidents, and we all know the cost of an accident today. But we'll be using far less people, what's another important aspect to consider due to the fact that finding workers today in this industry is not an easy task. And my question to you is, how much can you pay per working day to use this machine instead of your conventional crews? And I would like to pause a little bit here and think about what is the cost per day that this machine will cover when operating. Is it $300 or moving forward, is it $500? I can tell you a lot of this will depend, of course, how many hours per day the company works, how many days per month the company works. That plays an important role when it gets to all the financing costs as well as the other fixed costs. But I can tell you that it will be in this range, it will be in this field, and during the demo days that I'll talk later on here in Stanley, we'll present all the details and do some calculations together with you on how we came to those costs. Moving forward, which financing options do we have? First of all, we have the possibility through our financing arm to do a full payout loan, being a 24 months or a 72 months. There are, of course, variations of the full payout loan with balloon payments, with skipped payments, all things that can be adjusted depending on where the company is working. Can they work 12 months per year or not? Whereby I have to say 2 of those machines are working this week and have been working last week. cleaning up storms in the Boston region and being extremely busy. And we'll give you a link at the end of the presentation to one of the reports that we got from that. So it's not only cleaning up during the summertime or cutting trees during the summertime. During the wintertime, storm cleanup is a great application because all those trees are entangled. And when you put a person with a chainsaw cutting those entangled trees, you never know which direction those trees will move. With the 718, you hold those trees in place, you cut, and you move them away. So you take the person away completely from the danger zone. Additionally, financing options, of course, lease options. There are different lease options from capital leases to operating leases with all the flexibilities of being a dollar buyout of fair market value or other variations that could be interesting depending on the company financing conditions and the preferences of the owner. And the third financing is something very peculiar that we do, very new. It's called lease by the hour. And traditionally, when everybody thinks about lease, everybody thinks about leasing a piece of equipment for 1,000 hours per year or 2,000 hours per year for 4 years or 5 years. So it's always the mentality, I have X time to lease this piece of equipment. I have my 4 years or my 5 years. It's similar to the car where you lease a car for 3 years or 4 years. This leasing here turns the concept of leasing completely upside down, and we only think about hours. That means you'll be leasing an equipment for 5,000 hours or 6,000 hours or 10,000 hours. The great advantage here is that whenever you lease a piece of equipment based on time, you are gambling on the hours because you never know how the economy will perform, how much work you have. So that equipment might work 1,000 hours per year or 2,000 hours per year. So the result is either you pay too much because you give back a machine with 6,000 hours when you leased for 8,000 hours, or you are penalized at the end because you use more hours in that period of time and you pay surcharges. It's not different from leasing a car where you lease a car for 4 years, 12,000 miles per year, what would mean 48,000 hours at the end. And if you drive 55,000 hours, you pay a penalty. If you only drive 40,000 miles instead of 48, you are giving money away. The leasing company will be very happy. So that's what we did here is create a leasing mechanism where you only pay when you use the equipment. What helps a lot in industries that have fluctuation in the number of hours they operate per month. Moving forward, I would like to talk about a different aspect of the business. What is our support to the customers once they buy a machine? And I know I have been doing business in North America for over 25 years. It's always a concern when someone buys an European piece of equipment is, who will support me? Who has the parts? We created a support network that's second to none in North America. And the base elements of this support network are, first of all, our dealer network. We have currently 52 dealers with 215 locations in North America. There's hardly any place in North America that we don't have a dealer close by that can support the equipment. Second, we have a very large inventory of parts in Charlotte, North Carolina, $40 million. And this has allowed us to have a parts availability rate of 98% next day to the customers. This has been a huge reason for success for us. We work a lot with our material handlers inside steel mills, inside log mills, inside paper mills. And of course, these are people that are very interested in keeping their machines running as much as they can. Third, uptime kits. And I'll talk more when I get into a couple of pictures, but we created a number of uptime kits covering the main areas of the machine, like electric components or central lubrication system. Fourth, training. We have a training facility here in Stanley where we train free of charge mechanics for our customers as well as our dealers. So if you own a SENNEBOGEN and you train your mechanic as a customer and you buy these uptime kits, once you have a sensor that fails or a solenoid valve that fails, you have the parts, you have trained mechanics, you can, in a relatively short period of time, be up and running again and don't have to wait for help to come from the outside. And last but not least, our own technical support. We have a group of highly trained technicians that are available to support the dealers and the customers, either via phone or at the customer's location, in case a dealer cannot solve a problem. This is a support network that has brought us, within 4 years of being in North America, to be the market leader in material handling, and we never gave that position up. And we are fighting against established companies that have been in this country for 30, 40, or 50 years. Moving on, I would like to show you some details on the kits. Here you can see, for example, the box that's called the electric kit. As you can see from the next pictures, you'll see the content. On the top left picture, you'll see sensors. On the top right picture, you'll see connectors with cables. On the bottom right picture, you'll see a component list. And as you can see from the top left picture as well as from the bottom left picture, there are part numbers on every slot on this box, so you know exactly which part you are using and which part you have to order to complete your kit. As we move on, we'll see some more components on these kits. These are the coils for the solenoid valves. And inside that box, there is an order form as well. So once the mechanic used one part, it can order that part only and replace his kit. Moving forward, I want to show you the central lubrication kit. Top right picture, you'll see all the fittings you need. Bottom picture, you'll see the hoses and the grease distribution blocks. So basically, if anything happens and you swing into a tree and you damage a central lubrication line, you can just quickly repair and go back to work. Again, a huge advantage. You don't have to wait for help to come from the outside. You can do yourself. Moving forward, I would like to talk a little bit about training center. The picture of the inside of our training center. We can bring in rubber-tied units all the way to 200,000 pounds in weight. Moving on. With the possibility of accessing the unit from the sides, from the top, and from the bottom, so the mechanic will really learn what has to be done as a preventive maintenance or repairs to be prepared to take care of the units on the field. As we can see on the next picture, these are our training classes with all the newest requirements when it gets to audiovisual instruments to do a proper training. And moving on, we can see the training program. Each training is 5 days, level 1 and level 2. Once mechanic goes through both levels, he is 100% certified to do any kind of repairs and troubleshooting and making sure that the unit is working under 100% operating conditions. You can see on the left bottom picture some details of some of the simulators we use to train the mechanics, where we can build in faults, we can build in codes so that they can troubleshoot and find where the problems are. As we move on, I want to talk a little bit about our April demo day. Our April demo day will be on April 4th and April 5th. We are planning the following activities. First of all, we'll have machines here where we can do walkarounds and we can look in detail what I very shortly show you in this presentation today, live on a machine where all the components are, how to do the maintenance, how to access the components. Second, we'll do a detailed presentation on the design criteria, on the features and benefits, why we designed this machine the way we design, and where are the benefits for the tree care industry. Third, we'll do, of course, a live demonstration. We have enough space here that we can go in and cut some trees in different conditions and allow you to see what the machine can do. Fourth, we'll do a very detailed presentation, not only on cost of the machine itself, but operating costs and finance options. We'll have the people from our financing company here to answer detailed questions, as well as we'll have a visit to our operations center here in Stanley, including the spare parts facility and the training center. And of course, we'll have drinks and lunch to take care of everybody. Thank you very much for your participation, and I hope to see you all here beginning of April.
Hi, everybody. This is Marina again. I'm going to go ahead and jump in. I just wanted to bring to attention, I haven't seen anybody pose any questions yet. If you all can, if anybody has questions. Okay, I see two here under questions. Okay. Etienne Turner, how do you transport the 718E from job to job?
Basically, depending on which state you are and depending on the regulations on each state, you can have a certification to drive on the roads. The maximum speed is 12 miles an hour, so it's not the machine will be driving longer distance, but if you are cutting trees along a street or along a highway, you can be moving along. Apart from that, you would use a truck, as I said before, 48,000 pounds weight and 8 feet 7 inches width, makes it very simple to transport.
Okay, great. We have another question here from someone asking, where are the demo days?
Demo days will be in Stanley, North Carolina. Stanley is just outside Charlotte.
Okay, and finally, the last one, how do you register for the demo days?
If you go to our website, SENNEBOGEN.com, you have the opportunity to register for the demo days.
Great. Okay. Anybody else? If anyone has any last minute questions, please feel free. At this moment in time, I don't see any other questions. So, Ken and Constantino,
I would just like to make
if you guys
a comment, Marina, that my experience with Constantino and SENNEBOGEN has been a very, very, very interesting and enlightening one. And in SENNEBOGEN, an owner has a true partner. That is very, very different than ownership in equipment most of the time. I can see and I've come to know that SENNEBOGEN wants to partner with its owners and serve its owners because that's how it works and that's how it should be.
That's great. Awesome. Thank you for that feedback, Ken. Well, great. Just to let everybody know that's listening in, we will create a question and answer document just from some of the questions we've seen and some others that we will be addressing at the actual demo day on April 4th and 5th. So please keep a lookout for your inbox because we will be sending some update emails soon. So if there's no other last minute thoughts, then we can call it a day. Thank you so much for your time, and we hope to talk to you soon.
Thank you all. We'll see you at the top.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.